232 million years ago, Earth experienced rainfall that didn't stop for 2 million years. Not scattered showers, not seasonal monsoons, continuous relentless rain that transformed every ecosystem on the planet and killed 76% of all land species. This wasn't a myth or exaggeration. Geological evidence from 6 continents confirms the Carnian Pluvial episode. 2 million years of non-stop precipitation that makes modern climate change look gentle by comparison. And here's what that rain did to everything alive. The Carnian Pluvial episode started around 234 million years ago during the Triassic period. Before the rain began, most of Earth looked like Mars, red, dusty, and brutally dry. Pangaea, the supercontinent, created massive deserts that stretched for thousands of kilometers. Rivers barely existed. Most land animals lived within 500 kilometers of coastlines because inland regions were uninhabitable wastelands. Then, volcanic eruptions in the Rangelia Large Igneous Province pumped 20 trillion tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. To put that in perspective, that's equivalent to burning all known fossil fuel reserves on Earth today, 5 times over, in just 200,000 years. The CO2 triggered a greenhouse effect so extreme that ocean surface temperatures reached 40 degrees Celsius, as hot as a jacuzzi. That heat supercharged the water cycle, ocean evaporation rates tripled, atmospheric moisture content doubled, and then the rain started falling. The first decade of rain carved new river systems across Pangaea. Ancient dry riverbeds filled within weeks. Deserts that hadn't seen water in millions of years turned into swamps. Sediment cores from Italy, Poland, and Argentina show lake levels rising 30 meters in a single century, as tall as a 10-story building. But the rain didn't stop after a decade, or a century, or even a millennium. For 2 million years, precipitation rates were 6 times higher than modern rainforests. If you stood anywhere on Pangaea during this period, you couldn't go 3 hours without rain. Fossil evidence shows no dry season markers in sediment layers spanning that entire time frame. The rain was constant, global, and relentless. Unfortunately for land animals adapted to desert life, their bodies couldn't handle continuous moisture. Reptiles that evolved for water conservation started developing fungal infections that spread through populations in months. Fossil sites in Germany show mass die-offs of rauisuchians, crocodile-like predators that dominated before the rain. Their bones show evidence of respiratory infections caused by constant dampness. Herbivores faced worse conditions. Desert plants they'd eaten for millions of years drowned in waterlogged soil. New plant species that thrived in wet conditions replaced them, but these plants had different toxins and nutritional content. You couldn't just switch your diet when your digestive system evolved for specific vegetation over 50 million years. Fossil gut content from herbivores during this period shows signs of malnutrition even in areas with abundant plant life. Then flooding made survival nearly impossible. Rivers that used to dry up seasonally now flowed year-round, carving channels 100 meters deep through bedrock. Areas that were safe territories for millions of years became death traps when water levels rose 20 meters in a matter of days. Fossil assemblages from Switzerland show entire populations of terrestrial animals drowned together, trapped by flash floods that gave zero warning. In case you needed more proof of how catastrophic this was, sediment analysis reveals oxygen levels in lakes and rivers dropped below 2 parts per million, the threshold where most aquatic life suffocates. Even freshwater ecosystems couldn't handle this much water this fast. Species that survived previous extinction events for 100 million years went extinct in less than 500,000 years. Scientists discovered something shocking in 2018 when analyzing pollen records from the Carnian period. Plants weren't just adapting to wet conditions, they were completely replacing entire ecosystems. Seed fern forests that covered millions of square kilometers vanished. In their place, conifer forests emerged that would dominate for the next 150 million years. The replacement happened so fast that some fossil sites show the transition in layers only 5 meters thick. But here's what makes this event even more significant. While 76% of land species died, certain groups exploded in diversity. Early dinosaurs, which were rare and small before the rain, suddenly became the dominant land animals. Fossil trackways from Argentina show dinosaur footprints increasing from 5% of all tracks before the rain to 65% of all tracks just 2 million years later. Why did dinosaurs thrive when everything else died? Their hip structure. Dinosaurs evolved upright legs positioned directly under their bodies, like modern mammals, while other reptiles had sprawling legs that stuck out to the sides. That difference meant dinosaurs could walk efficiently through mud and flooded terrain. Sprawling reptiles burned 3 times more energy moving through waterlogged environments, which meant they needed 3 times more food in a world where food became scarce. Dinosaurs also had more efficient respiratory systems than other reptiles. Their lungs worked like modern birds. Air flowed through in one direction rather than in and out. In the humid, low-oxygen conditions created by constant rain, that respiratory advantage meant survival. Studies from 2020 show dinosaur species diversity increased 400% during the wettest phase of the Carnian Pluvial episode. Marine life faced different but equally brutal conditions. The massive rainfall dumped so much fresh water into oceans that surface salinity dropped by 8 parts per thousand in some regions, equivalent to mixing 3 parts seawater with 1 part river water. Marine reptiles that evolved in stable salinity conditions couldn't regulate their internal chemistry anymore. Ichthyosaur fossils from Britain show bone deformities consistent with osmotic stress. Their bodies were literally swelling from freshwater intake. Coral reefs collapsed globally. Reef systems that built up over 10 million years dissolved in less than 200,000 years. Carbonate platforms in the Tethys Sea, ancient structures 200 meters thick, eroded away as acidified freshwater runoff dropped ocean pH by 0.4 units. That's twice the pH change we've seen from modern ocean acidification, compressed into a fraction of the time. Then year-round monsoons created another problem: land runoff. Rivers carried 15 times more sediment into oceans than before the rain started. Shallow marine environments turned turbid. Light couldn't penetrate beyond 5 meters depth. Photosynthetic organisms that needed light couldn't survive. Filter feeders couldn't process the sediment load. Fossil beds from Nevada show ammonoid species that thrived for 80 million years went extinct in layers spanning just 30,000 years. Shockingly, the rain event triggered something scientists still can't fully explain. Carbon isotope ratios in marine sediments show 4 distinct pulses of carbon release during the 2 million year period. Each pulse released 5 to 10 trillion tons of carbon into the atmosphere in less than 50,000 years. That's too fast for volcanic activity alone. Current theories suggest the initial volcanic CO2 warmed permafrost and marine sediments, which then released methane that amplified the greenhouse effect. Basically, the planet created a feedback loop where warming caused more warming. Unfortunately for anything trying to adapt, temperatures kept escalating. Paleoclimate models show equatorial regions reached 45 to 50 degrees Celsius during summer, hot enough to cause heat stroke in humans within 30 minutes. Even at night, temperatures rarely dropped below 35 degrees Celsius. You couldn't cool down, you couldn't escape the heat, and you definitely couldn't escape the rain. The rain finally stopped around 232 million years ago, but Earth looked completely different. The supercontinent Pangaea started fracturing from the geological stress. New ocean basins formed as the crust cracked. River systems established during the wet period carved permanent drainage patterns that shaped continental geography for the next 100 million years. Dinosaurs had become the dominant land animals on Earth. Small theropods that weighed 30 kilograms before the rain evolved into predators weighing 500 kilograms within 5 million years after it ended. Sauropods that barely existed before the rain became the largest land animals in Earth's history. The Carnian Pluvial episode essentially created the age of dinosaurs by wiping out their competition. Plant life never recovered its previous composition. Seed ferns that dominated for 100 million years before the rain made up less than 10% of global vegetation afterward. Conifers became the dominant trees for the next 150 million years. The rain didn't just change ecosystems, it permanently reset them. No modern event compares to the Carnian Pluvial episode's scale. The longest recorded rainfall in modern times lasted 331 days in Cherrapunji, India. That's 0.0001% of how long the Carnian rains lasted. Hurricane seasons that drop 1 to 2 meters of rain over weeks are devastating. The Carnian dropped 6 to 8 meters of rain every year for 2 million years straight. In case you needed more perspective, if the Carnian Pluvial episode started when the pyramids were built, it wouldn't end until the year 2,050,000 AD. That's how incomprehensibly long 2 million years of rain actually is. Talk about weather that changed everything. A single climate event triggered by volcanic CO2 killed 3/4 of land species, transformed all major ecosystems, and set up the conditions for dinosaurs to rule Earth for 165 million years, all from rain that wouldn't stop. That's the reality of the Carnian Pluvial episode, the 2 million years of continuous rainfall that fundamentally restructured life on Earth and proved climate change operates on scales we can barely comprehend.